Excellent. And then David, Tom, and myself are present in the room. So before we get going on the agenda this evening, we have an opportunity for public comment. Actually, Sharon, are we amending the agenda to include the discussion point?
Well, we can just bring that up under, because it's already on under zoning regs. So if you want to do that under public comment, that's your...
No, that's fine. Zoning regs is fine. Yeah. Okay, so if anyone either online or in the room has anything they would like to offer to us on the for commentary that's not for items that are not on the agenda, this is the time to raise your hand, be recognized, and we'll go from there. Okay, hearing none. So tonight, first item we're going to be talking about is discussion for the town plan updates. Sharon, could I have you maybe move that chair?
Yeah.
Just a couple chairs out of the way, just slide them off to the side.
Perfect. Thank you, Brittany.
Oh, I didn't see that. Put it back, please. Thank you very much. All right. You gonna lead the way for us?
Sure.
Or is Josh gonna tell us?
Yeah, really, Josh, we're going to punt over to Josh. Kat, I just did want to say that Catherine extends her apologies. She has a personal matter that came up and was unable to make the meeting today.
Okay, thank you. Josh, how we doing?
Whoop, let me unmute there. We are proceeding along. The thing that we are coming to, actually, honestly, I've lost track of time. Have we spoken since our event at town meeting? Have I presented since then?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then I have a lot to say. The town meeting presentation was really quite good. I was there for about an hour and a half, and I had the ETC Next with me. I had the current town plan, and I was just there to answer questions we had up. Not the billboards, but the boards with the 5 different sort of subject areas, 6 different subject areas, outlining what input had been. I believe I shared that with you at the last meeting or the meeting before. And it was quite good in that most people said pretty much the same thing, that they were in favor of the public comments that we'd received, the direction we were headed. And if I could sum all of it up into a very pithy executive summary, it would be more cohesive, better connected, I think, in all seriousness. I think a lot of people, both in person at the town meeting presentation and throughout our visioning process, have wanted denser development in the places where they wanted denser development, and to keep the rural areas rural in the sense of working landscapes if at all possible, infrastructure being highly prized, and tying that into such things as environmental and economic resilience and diversity. But again, a real big outgrowth, I would say, of what we did with ETC in terms of what people want. And what we're doing right now as part of the work group, or my part of the work group, is we're attempting to put this into a clear executive summary that will then guide everything else. But the input has been so remarkably consistent, and I think that's been shared with you in a packet previously, but the input has been remarkably consistent that I don't foresee any road bumps there. Remember, the point of this process was to get input on the earlier end as opposed to on the back end where people were just getting an up or down. And I think the town has pretty clearly spoken with what they want in terms of, again, the separation between where we build, sort of how we build with respect to density infrastructure, and then leave the places rural as sort of a guiding principle behind everything.
So do we have, between you and the town plan committee and staff, do we have what we envision as the next step in this process? What are our next steps along the road?
I believe that the conservation trails, and Kent, you might be able to jump in there, had to cancel a meeting due to weather of our storm, and they were going to put something together to present to the planning commission with their comments. So I think we still need to do a little weaving of pulling those documents together.
I was going to say, is that an expectation we should have right now? Is that staff's going to try to bring some of that commentary together and then present it to us en masse, or Do you think have you guys had discussions at this point? Are we ready to dive in and start looking at different sections?
I think I'm going to punt to Josh on that. Josh, my understanding was that you were going to do some of the babysitting, if you will, of certain groups and where they were at with things. I know that Catherine was working a little bit. Kent was working with the conservation trails to try to pull it together. Kent, I don't think that you were going to do the write-up for them. Was the group themselves going to prepare something? And
That's my understanding. Yeah.
so we need to do a little more follow-up there, but
Yeah, we need to, if I can jump in, we were going to need to do a little more follow-up just in terms with all the other groups. The Energy Committee, for example, is working on their parts in, whoops, I closed the thing, chapters 2 and 5. And so it is a matter of pulling all of that together. And as Sharon said, sort of babysitting and figuring out what sort of workable thing.
Okay. Are we working to a target time frame?
I don't have a target for the town plan as of yet. I can give you something for the regs, but that wasn't relayed to me at this point. So maybe
Okay.
Josh has a better idea of what your timeline is.
As far as I know, we're still on, and again, this would have been, Catherine would have had that document, but the timeline that we presented, again, I think it was 2 meetings ago. And so, yeah, which I'm looking for. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine. I mean, let's maybe put it on the docket for the next meeting, even though it's
Yeah, I think that'll,
meeting.
yeah.
Let's put it on the docket to
The next
start.
planning meeting.
No, the next meeting.
The next planning commission meeting, because hopefully all of us will, all of us should be there at that point.
Okay, so for the first meeting in April 13th, you're saying to put the town plan discussion
Well, let's put the timeline
timeline.
so that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's another business type of item, not necessarily the detail yet. But let's just get it on track to sort of establish some targets right now.
Mhm.
They can always move,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they always have.
Yep.
Um,
True.
but let's set a target to give us something to work towards. Does that fit, Josh, with what you?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Put that on at the end of, because we do have 3 applications.
It's other business.
Okay.
I just think it's other business.
Okay.
Another business item.
Yep. Very good.
Yeah, and it's a matter of, like I said, bringing all of this input together in something workable, because the other committees are working on stuff. Like I said, specifically, Will Dodge sent something earlier this week about the chapters they're sort of working on.
Okay. That's
Yeah, it's a matter of saying, the timeline, and here's what we have. Yeah.
okay.
Perfect.
Commissioners, any questions at this stage? I'm going to throw it out to the folks in the audience. If anybody has any questions, that was more of a status update, not a lot of detail yet, but does anyone either online or here in the room have any questions?
I just would like to be kept updated on it more frequently. And what's going on, at what point
Okay.
the discussions are, and a little bit of information about what's coming in for information from the different committees.
Well, right now, I think it's safe to say that we don't have it either.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's not something that, as far as these updates, they haven't been packaged for presentation. Is that a fair statement, Josh?
Yeah, yes, that's accurate. There's nothing to withhold, if you will. Like we're still working on collating all that information.
Maybe
Yeah.
a place to keep track
So
of.
will we be apprised of some of that information before it becomes finalized?
Absolutely. I mean,
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, that's my concern.
it still hasn't
Oh, yeah.
come to this table for discussion yet.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it still has to come here, and we still have to review it. I mean, right now, as we talked about, and you were here for many of those earlier sessions, what we wanted to do this year, and we've done, is reach out for input before everything was already mostly written and stuff.
Right, but I didn't want that to be the thing that happened before it was sort of put before the public, so the public could also have input if they're not on a committee.
And I think we're on those lines. It's like I said, it still has to come here. The difference, or good thing, is that this year we're going to get something that's to look at that's already been seen by more people than have ever seen it in the
Right,
past
right.
when it is in front of us.
And I think the process has been really good in that respect. I just didn't want it to all of a sudden get finalized without
We still have to have,
being laid
yep,
in front of the public.
you are right there. We still have to have public hearings. We still have to public discussion,
I
which
have
we haven't done yet.
one unrelated question.
I don't think so.
If I could just add before you ask a new question, that the planning commission is still maintaining their second meeting of every month, which is the fourth Thursday, to be planning only. And that's when you'll hear these discussions on the workshops and the town plan and the zoning.
Well, that makes sense. May I turn the lights?
Sure. We haven't, nobody,
Was
I
that
used
your
to have
question, Paula?
blanket position, but what?
Was that your question?
Yeah.
no, I don't have visibility to the hands online, so you guys are gonna have to watch for that.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir.
I got a quick question, and it's something that I've been. Hey, Ethan, let me go up. Yeah.
Grab a chair.
Thank you.
And if you could state your name for the record, please.
So my name is Ethan Lawrence. I'm a Essex resident. I live on 135 Osgood Hill Road. One of the things that I have noticed about the town plan has before, and I know it's going to be brought up as it moves along, but there's not a very clear or defined distinguish between the zoning in, I would call it the upper part of Essex, but between conservation, what we call rural, and agriculture. The agriculture district is basically within the high to low density residential. It's not protected as agriculture. And then the rural area is more along the Browns River Road. And then you get up on, Bixby Hill, Osgood Hill, West Sleepy Hollow, and that's all conservation. So I think and I don't know how this is done. I'm not a town planner, but I think there needs to be a further distinguish of those groups and how those groups are split up as far as, preservation, developing, and all around utilization to the town. And I know that's something that's been in the works for years, but it's just one of those things as we continue to work the town plan and make it the way that we, foresee Essex for our, constituents who give us the feedback. I think it's clear that we need to distinguish those different areas and what the definition is.
So it would be good, Ethan. Do you mind?
Yeah, no, go
It'd be
ahead.
good if we can have this discussion with the zoning map
Yep,
in front of us.
yep.
Sharon, or Ken, is that something you could bring up? Because what I'm
We-
hearing,
I can send you some stuff if
what
it's
I'm
easier.
hearing though
Yep.
is non-zoning map related terminology. That's what I want to make sure that
Non-zoning map.
we aim for the right phrasing, because every part of the town has a zoning designation.
Right, I'm conservation up on Osgood Hill Road,
So
but
that's
800
probably
feet
C1.
800 feet from me is rural.
Yep.
And then you get down not until below
Yeah.
Browns River Road, and then it's agriculture. But in the town plan, we don't have a designated plan for agricultural land. A lot of the agricultural land is zoned as low to high density residential.
Okay.
So I just didn't know how we're gonna distinguish, different lands in their uses. How we zone something agriculture as well as it's overlapped in residential and vice versa.
Yeah, I think, what you're alluding to isn't really, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not really town plan. Town plan's high level visioning.
Right.
Really,
It's more towards the zoning.
it's the zoning
Right.
subdivision
Yep.
regs, which we're going to talk about in a second, that really
Yep.
deal with
Oh, I jumped the.
all of those
jumped the
three,
gun.
the things you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
But what we would potentially, where we could maybe tie into that idea in the town plan is to come up with a vision statement for agricultural preservation. I mean, that what you just described as far as not specific delineation between and this, but town plan wise, it would be more of the vision statement for agricultural preservation or delineation
Right.
or such and such. And then that's the enabling, the town plan is the enabler for any of the regulation changes
Would
that we
tie
make.
it together.
So big visioning
Yeah.
town
Yeah.
plan, like what
Yeah.
you'd want to see in the ag
Wish list.
zone, wish list, and just visioning, like how
Right.
you see the town, how you see an ag zone versus a conservation zone. And then what happens is the zoning and subdivision regs take that vision and actually put it down into the nuts and bolts, what you can and can't do. And the question always is when you write a reg, is you have to look back and say, was that the intent of the town plan? Was that the
right.
vision for this zone?
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think you don't have the right documents, but you've got the right idea
Yeah.
of what needs to happen.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So this means basically, since you've come forward and have been so eloquent on this, you're going to be tapped
That's okay.
for more opinions and commentary.
I'm an open book.
But that's how this works. You volunteer people like that. All right. Thank you.
Oh, we have a question online from Lorraine Zalone.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Unmute with there.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my question. I'm wondering if Joshua could let us know in terms of jumping off what Ethan just said, did that come up in the town, in the visioning process? Because I'm also concerned about our future in terms of food resiliency and water and so on and so forth as we enter this new climate change century, and want to make sure that we don't put all of our eggs in one basket in terms of being able to feed ourselves. So I was just wondering if the public weighed in on that. I totally support what Ethan's saying. Thanks.
Yes, and if I glossed over that too hastily before, I apologize. That was definitely a point of public input with respect to the connection between working farms and food resilience and environmental resilience in Essex. That was absolutely a point. And in terms of, I don't know if you saw the the big word cloud we had and and other documents, but yes, that was absolutely a strong point of the connection between working farms and food resilience at that visionary level, and then again the regulations going from there. So yeah, that was definitely captured, Lorraine.
Don't see any other hands.
Okay. So you probably wrote more eloquently than me, but I think I just wrote a note that we want to look into coming up with basically a vision statement for ag conservation, future preservation.
Yeah.
Something to that effect, but I think we would reach out, and this may be something we can follow up on. Cool. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Lorraine. Next on our discussion, is there any other questions before we move? Next on our agenda is going to be discussion of draft zoning regulations, and I think, Sharon, we wanted to put somebody on
Yes.
front.
So we did have a request. Courtney Booton of SV Signs was asking today about a permit for lighting, and the newest thing out there, I guess, is called push-through signage. Wasn't familiar with it. I asked her if she could come in and just show it. She has a little brief. She has an example, so she can give us a little brief, few-minute presentation. And if you have questions, maybe something you might want to consider for either this round of zoning regs or a future round of zoning regs. But Courtney, if you want to come on up. And...
I'm going to plug these in if that's okay. I just
Sure.
So, like Sharon said, we have a client. Pretty narrowly worded zoning regulations when it comes. So Essex, it's in the zone that we're doesn't allow faceless. But it does specify that it has to be, which it is. And the way that channel letter works or sign works is the lighting comes directly out the back of the sign, reflects off the surface behind. It's very common, and you see them all over, especially in Vermont, because, like I said, facelit isn't allowed in a lot. So, not necessarily new, but a different type of non-facelit illumination is called, it's a push-through letter, or push-through logo, push-through signage. And when you do this, it accomplishes the same, essentially the same thing, in that it's not a facelit letter. This is a standard facelit, which you don't see a lot of. Some towns in Vermont allow it, most don't. This would be a routed letter, still facelit, but it's just the letter or the logo is showing. This is a push-through letter. So the face of the sign cabinet is routed out, and the acrylic or other plastic letter comes through It's an opaque face, so no light comes out the face of the sign. It's just coming out the side of the letter. This is much more achievable for very small letters or logos, logo elements. It's hard to fabricate this really small or impossible, because you have to have a can that's big enough to hold the LED illumination. You have to be able to have the power supply, all of that coming out of the back of the letter. So this enables you to carve out or crowd out something really small in the face of the sign and still achieve that same no face lighting. The lighting just comes out the side of the sign.
Do you have, can virtual see that? Does that reach where, yeah, you can
She
show?
has it on there.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want me to dim the light a little bit so you can see what the light looks like a little bit better at
Ollie,
night?
wanna
Oh,
grab
You
it?
know where the switches are, right?
Are there different lumens? Like, can that be obnoxiously bright, or is it always kind of?
The only way really to make it brighter would be to have a very, very deep acrylic, so you'd have a lot of light out the side.
Is that,
Is that better? Can you see?
that any
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So I sent Sharon, you can't put up the picture I sent you earlier, can you, of that Ameriprise sign?
No.
Okay, no worries. So I sent an example of a sign at night so you can see it really when it's really dark. Comparing the two, we're talking about, especially in something like this, it's something that's smaller. This type of letter, depending on the size of the letter, you're going to have, this can be really bright. As far as I understand, the regs in Essex don't talk about the lumens, the brightness, anything like that. So if you have this stood off 8 inches, 12 inches, it's going to throw a lot of light, right? If it's really, really close, it's a little bit less, but it's not, this isn't any less light or any more light necessarily than you would have from a push through. Both of them are achieving the same thing. Neither of them have the glare. Neither of them have that front lit look to them. So somebody was joking with me a couple of days ago, they should just start calling that halo push through, and it would essentially be the same kind of, the same kind of thing. They don't, but
So we do, excuse me for a minute,
Yeah.
we do have some lighting ranges that we have, and I can't pull it up online, but this is what she had sent me.
so that's a cabinet sign, a freestanding sign that we did in Williston. We're working with Williston. They have the same rules about the halo lit signage being the only type of illumination. They did allow the push through for this instance. So this is a cabinet sign. We did a push through letter, same kind of thing. It's not face lit. The only light is coming around the sides, and it enabled this client to have the illumination while still keeping a small letter size. And honestly, from a client standpoint, it's much more affordable to make a push through sign than it is to have the whole logo in tiny little channel letters that are this big. So, and that's one of the reasons why we're looking at doing this in a cabinet sign situation. It's a much more attractive but affordable way to go than having 5 gooseneck lights off the top of your cabinet sign.
So to follow up on Dave's question that he asked, is there variability in the light source?
Yeah, or there can be. Yeah, I mean, you could say it's hard to measure.
The reason I ask
Yeah.
is going back in time,
Mhm.
put your way back hat on, because we had a conversation similar to this when Lowe's came in and we had to evaluate the halo using LED. And it was a animated discussion from my memory.
Mhm.
And it was, we started talking about, the I forget the measurement for light. No, I know it was the gradient, the
Oh, the
Kelvin temperature.
Kelvin temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kelvin
blue light versus
but
daylight.
it was because of that changes the amount of the glare, that changes the amount of that changes the overall appearance and the effect and so forth. So it actually got very granular into that discussion.
I will tell you from from an industry standpoint, and talking like national sign industry regulations and stuff like that, it is really hard to measure. And it's really hard to control. Most towns don't, because you have to have the equipment to measure it. You can say, okay, you're only allowed to use this range of a LED of white, you know, so you have like the bright white daylight. But when you get into the brightness, you know, you have a 4-foot tall letter that meets code versus a letter that's like this, you know, where do you say what's too bright and what's not? I mean,
I think we got into the
Yeah.
discussion on where it fell in the scale and the Kelvin scale as well, because of the whether it was blue, whether it was yellow, whether it was red.
yeah.
And I think those are the right terms. It's been a while.
Well, and you can see it, I mean, even just with like fluorescent lights
Yeah.
that we use, you know, in like a sign cabinet, you would use a bright white, a daylight, and it will affect the warmth, essentially, the cool light of the light that it's emitting.
So in towns that you've seen that have allowed the adoption of this, has it just been, I'm sure it's a mix, but have you seen towns implement some restrictions on it, or is it just a flat out they allow this new type of push through?
I don't know of any towns. We permit all across New England, but the majority here in Vermont. I don't have any towns that I've ever had to show them the color of the white, the color of the light. As long as they're allowed lights, it kind of is what it is. And it's, you know, you run into, you know, say in Williston, for example, I mean, you're allowed, say, an 80 square foot sign. That's going to put off a heck of a lot more light than a 24 square foot sign. But the difference between those is pretty hard to measure. And you can have the same lumens, but at a different size, and it's going to change. It's just going to change the whole formula. And the measuring of that is going to be really, from an enforcement standpoint,
A nightmare.
good luck.
I think one of our concerns has always been light spillage. Obviously, light, you know, how far away can it be seen? For example, the CVS sign, when it was first proposed, was going to have been a lighthouse along Essex Way. It's not anywhere near the intensity that it was expected to, and that's primarily the color as well as the brightness of the sign.
And I think that the best way to control that is the size, by saying no face lit, and it's not glaring and it's not glaring at you, and by controlling the size, which you've done. I mean, your bigger, Sharon, you can speak more to. I'm not entirely familiar with, but it's 5%. Do you have a cap on?
We do. So
I mean, we have everything from Kelvin temperature for externally illuminated. We went through a lot
yeah,
of,
Yeah.
we nailed down a lot.
Yeah.
because we were worried about,
Right. You want to have something to fall back on in case it does turn out to be a lighthouse.
Well, we were
I get
transitioning
that.
to a new technology as well.
Right.
That was the big thing.
Right. And LED, I mean, you can do a lot with it, but controlling, I think size is the big one. And we don't have 200 square foot signs.
Yet.
So
Yeah.
our reg is the area of the facade sign shall not exceed 5% of the area of the facade to which it is attached, or 15 square feet, whichever is greater. So if you have a big facade,
And you don't cap it. So
no.
Okay.
But we do in the business design control. I mean, there's areas where we do.
because something like Lowe's,
Yes.
how did you,
There is
did-
not.
I mean,
5% of the area,
did they try to put up a 500 square foot sign, or did they,
whichever.
I mean, they're also going to be reasonable because
Yeah.
what's affordable, right? But
If the side of the building could be larger than the 50, I mean, the 5%.
Well, it says,
It
or whichever
reads
is
it,
greater, so
whichever
if
is
it's more
greater.
than 15 feet, it would just stop at 15.
But-
oh, I thought it was the other way
but-
around. I thought you were
Yeah,
allowed.
we've allowed
no matter what.
larger
Yeah, it's not.
signs.
It's whichever is greater. So if the size of the
Oh,
of
I
the
see.
facade
Yeah,
is
right.
yeah.
large,
15 is even if you have just a little
Tiny one, you can go-
or you can go 15 feet.
Yeah.
And is that other push
And
through
that would be
kind
for the
not
freestanding.
allowed currently?
The regs say, do they say specifically
Halo.
reverse halo lit?
Halo reverse channel.
Yeah, so you throw the reverse in there, and that's where that's specifying this type, and that's so
that was
like I said, it's pretty
That
narrow.
was Lowe's.
Yeah,
Okay, so it says what's allowed, not
yeah.
what's not.
And that's most of. I mean, like here or in Williston, anywhere that allows internal illumination that's not face lit, you see reverse halo lit. You see it like everywhere. But there are applications where this is, like I said, it's accomplishing the same thing. It's just called something different. So if the regs are written so if the regs were written no
Further.
no facelit, then that gives us more options. But the way they're written, so the reason I'm asking specifically is I have a client we're trying to design some signs for them where channel letters are not going to work very well, because their freestanding sign is limited to 35 square feet. So I can't have 12-inch channel letters on there because it's too small of a sign box. So we have to go smaller for their logo. And if they want illumination, it's going to have to be a push through, or it's going to have to be goosenecks, which, from an aesthetic standpoint, aren't quite as.
So would you be happy if the push through was restricted to a smaller size?
To the depth, yeah. I mean, if that made you feel better, like made you feel like there was more control, I think that would be fine. I mean, you can say 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. I mean, it
Well, not
throws-
the depth, but also the height.
Don't give up the depth though.
Yeah,
Oh, the height. I mean,
yeah, of the letter.
yeah, but it's not. I don't think that would be.
It seems like there could be a lot of light coming out the side. That's the reason I'm asking. So
Right.
if it's smaller, there's not as much light coming out.
Right, but I would say you'd control that better with the depth. If you let somebody have something that's this thick, that's going to throw a lot of light. Whereas if you said, you can have a max of 5/8 of an inch or something like that, then that's something that you can do. It throws enough light, but it's not. I mean, again, even a 2-foot tall push through letter is not going to throw more light than a 2-foot tall chip or reverse halo lit letter, especially if you space it further away from the wall.
It seems like it would send a more direct light out the side. Is that true? Or when I look at the example, it just
No,
seems
yeah,
like you
no,
look at that.
Acrylic, so it's kind of diffuse.
I was just gonna say it's diffused.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a
Okay.
crisp, like
All right.
clear light. So, I mean, yeah, you could restrict it to anything, but
I would think that we could get generic enough to allow this style of lighting and just write in the reg exactly what it is we're trying to prevent, which is light spillage
Mhm.
off the sign, off the letters. I mean, reading through are pretty comprehensive. I haven't read these in a while, but I mean, we have a lot of very specific criteria surrounding our current lighting regs and depth and distance and the size of channel lighting. And I don't think it would be too hard to lock this down easily.
but I would say that your best bet for controlling the spillage would be going with it. I don't know, just from experience with making them, I've never had somebody produce we do a lot of installs for nationals too, where they send us the pre-built sign. I've never had one come through with a huge depth. It's just not how they're made. Then you'd have to have really thick acrylic, and that would be really cost prohibitive. So usually you're using at the most like a 1/2 inch acrylic, and this is actually less because this is carved out of that acrylic. So the acrylic panel is on the back too. That's what's holding it onto the back of the sign.
And
So
you
the-
realize the same standards would probably apply for like no blinking, no, all that.
Yeah, and that's a general standard.
Yeah.
So that
I want to jump to the guys online. Josh, Chu, or John. Any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I'd like to know what was the term you used when you were saying you were saying you could just call it something
Oh.
like a cap or a block or something like that. What was that term you used?
did I say halo push through?
Halo push through, but you gave a one more description of it that was very specific. That sort of kept it from. I don't remember what you said. It was a capped or it was something. I can't remember now.
I don't remember.
I think that was a joke, though.
Oh.
Right.
Oh, that's too bad if it was a joke. 'Cause that's
Through lighting.
Yeah.
well, that part I got.
Okay.
So never mind.
Josh, how about you?
Remember tonight.
I mean, in terms of the detail, there's a lot to take in, but I like the idea behind it a lot. I think it's interesting.
John Mangan.
I'm fine with it. I'm actually quite familiar with it. And to me, it's less obtrusive than a lot of the other kinds of lighting. It's a lot more refined and detailed. So I'm fine with it.
Okay. So I stole David's manual here for a moment, standards, and it's not just the lighting. It's also talking about freestanding signs shall not have cutouts or penetrations, but should have solid face. We got that to deal with. Lettering shall not be less than 6 inches nor greater than 4 feet. So we need to make sure you were talking about smaller processes. So we've got other restrictions that we've got to wrap into this.
When you say no cutouts in the freestanding, is that so it's not a shaped sign? You're looking for like a rectangular?
It says freestanding ground signs shall not have gaps, cutouts, or penetrations, but instead shall have a solid face or area without opening.
So I would consider this a solid face because there's no hole.
But you got the acrylic bumping out, so it's a cut. I'm not.
Yeah. No. I think it comes to the intent. I don't whoever.
So we're beyond the intent a little
Yeah.
bit. We got it.
or
written.
interpretation.
So what I would like to propose is potentially to have you work with staff, if you're willing to do this, look at this regulation and find out where your lighting would fit into it. And I would take a very restrictive view, such as cutouts, meaning you got cutouts in that sign.
Okay.
And let's see how we would need to massage this.
Yeah.
Because there's enough touch points in this. I mean, I would have I would like to, but I would have a hard time accepting that as a signage mechanism today, because there seem to be a number of touch points in this rule through no fault, because we were trying to make sure we weren't blindsided, so to speak, blindsided by, signs.
Bad term.
Yeah.
And things change in the industry, and so it's covering your bases, but broadly, you have to be narrow enough to make sure you're not going to get something that's totally out there, but you also have to be broad enough to take on changes. This is what we do, but I also live here, so we're not. And we talk all the time about how much nicer it is, even though we install signs, that we don't have billboards and giant signs.
Yep.
And so but at the same time, we're looking to help make sure that the towns that we work with understand the terminology and what's possible to regulate too, because some things, you can say it has to be this, and this, but if you have no way to regulate that,
It
It
can't
doesn't
be
work,
all
right?
just subjective.
right, exactly.
Well,
And
the LED lights were brand new when we did this
Yes.
round, and the temperature ranges and were wide, and we just had this fear that all of a sudden the cost of LED lights was going down, and we had this fear that all of a sudden now we were going to have these bright signs everywhere.
Right.
That hasn't happened, in part because we were so specific, but in part also because it just didn't work out that way. So we have a little bit, I think, less fear now.
Yeah.
Let's go to John Mangan. Your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say regarding that comment on cutouts, I think that could be as simple as adding the word no open cutouts, to the regulation. Because I think that was the intent. And
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I was just saying these are very similar to like shadow box signs. I think that was probably the term used before, push through lettering, where you have a box that's lit up, and then you have a cutout with some type of diffused material that only shows what you intend the light to see. It's very similar to that.
I think David, you'd made the point, or somebody made the point, that we need to understand what we're trying to prevent. Maybe it was even you. We need to understand what we're trying to prevent.
Yep.
And we identify that up front instead of just saying what we allow. Say what we're trying to prevent, and then we can list, how we do that, and that would potentially leave us some room to interpret a new technology coming in the door without handicapping us, like I feel we are right now. But this sounds like it's the next thing. Kent?
I think one thing that would be helpful when you have a chance to meet with staff is if there's any regulations that you've already seen in Vermont that you feel like are good regulations that cover it well. So we don't have to start from scratch. If just have something good to already look at.
We have 252 towns. Is that how many towns in Vermont? 251 something. Yeah.
251.
And there are 251 completely different sets of
Yeah.
regulations,
Yeah.
which is really
Rephrase,
fun.
which ones work easier?
Maybe that's what.
Yeah.
And also potentially some images of the different sizes. Like, what's the largest that you put up with this technology or this format at night?
Yeah.
So if our fear is light spillage and this beacon, let's make sure that we don't have that.
I'll see. Usually this is what we would recommend for something smaller, and partly it's material too, right? You're limited by acrylic comes only in certain size, so you're not going to see a 12-foot acrylic push through.
Today.
But, but yes, I'd be happy to show examples.
I think this would be helpful, and we're in the right time for this. I don't know that. I I don't think we can say tonight that,
Yeah.
yes, we could approve that as a signage without some serious discussion. But this sounds like it's an appropriate thing to get into the regulations now.
When I'm, as we have this specific client in mind, is this a process that would take weeks, or is this a process that would take months to get approval?
We're getting very close to, putting the regs, finalizing the draft regs.
Mhm.
So, and I think we're we're getting a little bit ahead, but we're looking to warn them, in May, end of May. So, I'd say the faster you can move but we're not gonna, the PC is not going to react quickly. So if worst case scenario, it doesn't make it into a current round, it will go on the list and we'll go on the next.
Do we have, pretend you're not listening to me. Do we have the opportunity to put waivers in place for lighting sources in whatever district her client is? I don't need to know specifics
Okay,
of the
so
district.
first of all, it's in the BDC design control, so this particular signage would have to come to you. So yes, do we have any specific regs right now? Not really.
Okay. What I was just wondering is because if we see with intent of a redesign of this provision,
Yeah.
and we're in general agreement with it, we know that it's going to be going through the process. Could we accept a light source for an application before we enable this? Could we accept it with a waiver on design control standards if we've got this rework in flight?
So I would say a couple of things. I'm going to have to.
I don't need an answer today.
Okay.
I think this is a question because if you have a client
Maybe you can answer.
because I'm hearing general acceptance of this design or approach, but we don't have enabling language for it yet. And if we get to the point of having a reworked, standard, it's going to take time to go through the process because it has to go through our public hearings. It has to be warned for the select board. It has to go through their public hearings. So it's not a quick turnaround. But if we're putting something forth and there's agreement on it, there may be just logically it may be appropriate to put it in place.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that's getting way ahead of the game. Okay. Thoughts, questions? You only get 3 a night, so use it well.
I don't think you can have these in your district.
No, my barn's lit up all night. My question is, if we're truly concerned about light pollution, because that's what I hear, just the word light pollution, where do we factor in the gas stations, parking lots that are lit up all 24 hours?
Well, the only ones that aren't regulated are the ones that have been there in existence since before the regulations were put in play. Any of the ones that have come online since the regulations have been tightened up have a very strict adherence to lumens.
Yeah.
So
And
they
gas
either
stations fall under something different, don't they? Not-
they do, but every one of those that's come through, Maple Fields is a great example. There's the lights, if you look at them, are more recessed than they want. Generally, they want ones that are well exposed and cast a very broad light, and many of the ones that have gone through have not. They've had to be more recessed, so the light is more restricted. There's safety designs and so forth that come into play, but
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of Essex, the beverage discount, because when they closed the store, they shut off all the lights. I didn't know if maybe it was a possibility where you could allow a different type of sign under operating hours or at midnight.
We
It could be
we
on
have
a
that.
timer.
well,
You're
here
only allowed to have your sign on an hour after the close of
Business
business.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's perfect.
it already says. So we've got it. I mean, these are good questions.
I haven't had the book fully yet. I'm getting there.
These are good questions. There's also different the heights of poles. So you could see a light from a long way away, but it may not be casting as much light if it's up higher. So we balance the number of light poles versus the illumination by raising some of the light poles in some instances where you can see it further away, but it doesn't use as many poles. It does. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that factor into what is the use, what is the district.
And for the non-sign stuff like gas station or even let's say a industrial building in Saxon Hill, we get a lighting analysis that shows the average and specific
Lumens at each
lumens
point.
that each light fixture gets, and then the spillage is the light fixture shield goes. So we actually analyze that, and they have to do a lighting analysis and provide it.
Like you said, a lot of the buildings are grandfathered. I think of the post office because I drive by the post office every single day in the summertime, usually before the sun's up, and I you know, it's always bright. So I guess my question is, how many? All right, I was not sure. Should I say how many? But there's the existing is grandfathered, period,
Until something comes in for a new application.
and that's the only way you have.
Whenever a building or an application goes in, it goes in under the zoning zoning and subdivision regulations at the time that are in
Met the
effect at the
requirement.
time it comes before us.
Okay.
If they change, there's no requirement
Right.
that an application change until they come back for something new. So these are all good questions.
Hey, thank you. Be back.
You only got one more, remember? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire. Yes.
And I think that, the effort is, this covers a fair amount of different items in here, and it would be good to have an opinion on what could be done with what's here to enable that sort of lighting.
And we have a
When
lot
it
of
comes in.
resources.
Perfect.
So I think if you guys can keep in mind the two points, one is, what are we trying to do? So, I mean, the rewrite of this section should potentially identify what we're trying to prevent. And then leaving future-proofing the regulation to allow an examination of a new light source without out and out canceling. So if, for example, if we had a clause that allowed us to evaluate a new style technology and adopt it on the fly, and then incorporate it into the regulations going forward, something like that.
Under
would
a
allow us-
waiver.
And
So a light waiver for
If-
signage.
But specifically to incorporate, not just because, hey, I want a waiver,
Right.
but
Right.
a waiver for to
Right.
adopt new technology
Yeah.
that meets the intent of the.
that meets the intent of the regulation and achieves the goal of the section.
And there are only a couple of districts that allow illuminated signage in general, correct? The one that the,
I'm sorry, I haven't had my nose in the sign regs a lot lately either, but we
He
can
wants you to talk to the microphone.
oh, I'm sorry, you can't hear me.
talk about that.
Okay, yeah, because I think some of the districts don't allow lighting at all, so really it's only when
It's
you're
in-
talking about the different,
It's usually in the business
Yeah.
control areas, or not business design, but in business area, commercial district.
Yeah.
So, and not to steal Sharon's thunder, but I think that under 310I, sign permits and administration, says in the event a particular situation is not set forth herein, which in the opinion of the Board of Adjustment is consistent with the philosophy set forth in this section, the Board of Adjustment may on appeal may approve the proposed sign, provided that all the other provisions of this section are satisfied. So there may be a,
so
we might
so
have
we
some-
could submit an application potentially to have, I mean, if we're going to the DRB anyway, or
yeah,
planning commission anyway.
it's possible.
Okay.
I mean, I would double.
That's Board of Adjustment though, right? So that's
That would require, yeah, ZBA, but Sharon will help you with all that.
Sharon will talk.
good.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. We're done for the night, right?
All right,
Almost.
good zoning.
All right. What's next on our topic list, Sharon?
Okay, yeah, sorry, let me just get.
You could always turf it to Ken.
Okay, grab my, get some cheat sheet here. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so, right now we are looking to try to put forth, try to get these regs wrapped up as quickly as we can. Because as we all know through the years of experience, these keep coming at us. So we're shooting for the second meeting in May for a proposed public hearing, which means we'll have to get these wrapped up into you, soon enough. So with this particular meeting, I prepared additional proposed changes to the regulations to what you've already seen so far. And I'll just run through them real quickly. Most of them are housekeeping items. So Article 1, Table 1.1, which is the exemptions to the regs, just adding in some language that ground solar shall not be located outside of the commercial industrial zoning districts and shall have zero net impacts as identified in the scenic resource area. That's the same language taken right out of the town plan, so it made sense to put that there. Article 2 in the resource preservation district. This was discussed at your previous meeting and I didn't walk away with your final decision. Did you want to consider additional sound barriers in the RPDI zoning district, such as berms, additional mature landscaping or fencing to assist as noise barrier to any residential developments? In the areas of the 100 or 200 foot buffers that do not have adequate habitat, additional plantings can encroach into the buffer, and the landowner shall be required to provide staff a yearly forest management plan for its buffers. That's a talking point for you, for the planning commission to determine.
What is additional plantings can enroute?
Well, such as, for example, Al Senecal up on Red Pine Circle, Red Pine Circle,
Field.
in Saxon Hill Road, there was a buffer there, but it wasn't a grown buffer.
Right.
The 200 foot buffer wasn't grown, so
Right.
he volunteered to plant extra. And I don't know. I think some is within the buffer.
It's all within the buffer.
Yeah.
It's all within the buffer. Thank you. To provide a quicker growth. So again, that's
So- Let's run through it and then we'll come
Okay.
back and chew on it.
So we're not talking about these as we go here, because I mean, I personally don't need you to go through every one of these unless we're going to talk about them, because I read them before the meeting. So.
okay. So I was mostly doing that for the audience. So
Right, but if we're going to take that effort, do we want to talk about them while we're on them, or are we going
it's up to you guys.
Let's drill into it then, since we've got an interruption of flow. So
Keep going.
the buffer.
Okay,
No,
the buffer.
The buffers. When you talk about forest management plan of the buffers, who owns the land?
It would be the landowner. So new applications that come before you.
So we want a forest management plan for which buffer? The 200 foot buffer?
The 200 foot buffer, yes, or the 100 foot buffer, but and maybe not a forest management plan other than a condition that says they have to maintain the buffer.
See, and that's where we start getting into what I think is you guys can shoot me down here, but I start thinking as soon as we start getting into maintaining anything in the buffer other than a single forest management plan, which is by the owner of the overall tract of land, then we start getting into very disjointed processes. Who owns what? Who's going to be responsible for what?
Well, when you buy the
Well,
lot, you know
Yeah,
it's defined.
I mean, I was going where you were going, which is there's no way it's cost effective, or does it make sense to have a forest management plan for a buffer? That's
Right.
just like it would just be cost prohibitive to do that every year. But you can see an applicant coming before us, putting forth a landscaping plan, having part of that landscaping plan encroach into either removing or replanting the buffer, which we keep waiving and allowing, and then having a condition that says for the life of the project, you've got to maintain all of that as we always do, to the landscaping.
But
plan.
that,
Well, that's the 50 foot
buffer
buffer.
on the internal.
No,
side.
I know. I'm saying if we agreed to
Yeah.
do it with the one and two.
See, and I'm stuck on the 200 foot buffer being no intrusion other than we had an intrusion
Utility.
or utilities, and that was it. Everything else needed a forestry management plan that was encompassing the entire 200 foot buffer.
True, but since the settlement agreement with Al Senecal and lots were being sold, it was now not one owner. It's as lots are getting sold, it's many owners, and so the forest management plan that was in place kind of goes away as he sells his lots. So
See, and that's I think that's something that's a different discussion point because there needs to be a contiguous forest management plan for that buffer, and it's almost like a covenant
Yeah, I mean, right now it says the 200-foot buffer shall be maintained in an undisturbed vegetated state. No tree clearing or removal of vegetation shall be allowed with the exception of such activities authorized pursuant to a forest management plan approved by the planning commission.
Oh, that's a good way of doing it. Because they don't have to have a forest management plan if they don't want to do anything.
So,
See, I think this is where we're getting into. The whole RPDI thing is I mean, we can talk about the internal buffer, and we can say that the internal buffer. I would be willing to codify that the internal buffer can be it can be used for storm water management.
the 50-foot buffer?
The 50-foot buffer can be
Yeah.
used for stormwater management.
Yeah.
No structures.
Right.
What is it when it's
There's,
continuity of
I don't think
appearance?
there's any issue with the 50-foot buffer. I think that,
Except that we continue to mark it as a waiver.
so either maybe that discussion point becomes, do you get rid of that waiver? I mean, get rid of the 50-foot buffer and require a landscape after construction, some type of, your own landscape.
I mean, right
Some
now,
of the 50-foot buffers aren't landscape.
Some are,
Some
but
are, some aren't.
some are, some aren't, but, the planning commission, due to construction and getting the construction in there and where the driveway goes, usually it ends up, the 50-foot buffer usually gets cut and then
So the language that we put in for the waiver, we continually put it in there. We support the
right.
waiver for the use of the 50-foot buffer for stormwater retention and revegetation so that it's a more contiguous
Mhm.
sort of.
That's in the front of the buildings.
Yes.
But the back of the buildings.
But
don't
that's
have-
that's a
That's a different.
so right now, our regs under table 2.14, it's very specific under buffers for both A and B, the 200 and the 100-foot buffer. The last sentence in both of those sections says the planning commission may not waive buffer requirements in the 200, may not waive in the 100. And then on section 3, which is the 50-foot buffer, it's very specific about granting a waiver. If a waiver, that it can be done, if a waiver is necessary, and if a waiver is granted, what has to happen. So like right now, from a 10,000-foot view, we've drawn a hard line. Nothing in the 1 or 200 will waive the 50, but it requires a landscaping plan.
So maybe we're going off a little bit in a different direction, but the intent of this proposed reg was a lot of the 200-foot buffer and some of the 100-foot, but mostly the 200-foot buffer. The landscaping is in the sky. It's trees. It's not helping sound barriers for the neighbors. And even though if they are maintaining, doing their own forest management. So that's where we're trying to capture. Do you want to berm
So
in
here's
front
the
of the
difference.
buffer?
Here's the difference on that. That 200-foot buffer is not for sound barriers. If we need to make sound barriers part of it, that's what we need to add in. Because currently that 200-foot buffer is just an undisturbed area. It's not a sound barrier.
Okay.
And those trees have been sticks for a long time, since before pretty much any development has gone on in there.
So
But
again,
people are asking for a sound barrier.
Right. That to me is the key point. Is it's not do we allow them into the buffer, whatever. I mean, we're saying the buffer is done. You can't touch it.
so then maybe just the first sentence of this in the resource, somewhere in the RPDI district, add the sentence, the planning commission shall consider additional sound barriers such as berms, additional mature landscaping or fencing to assist as a noise barrier to any residential developments. Period. And then forget the sentence.
I don't even think you need to say additional. I mean, if we're going to continue, if we're
Okay,
going to
so-
consider sound barriers,
Okay.
I mean, let's go to the line. Chu, John, Josh,
Somebody's waiting.
thoughts, question, weigh in. And we have somebody in the waiting room.
I just let him in.
I definitely think it's worth considering. Interesting conversation. I'm learning as you guys are talking, but I think having this natural sound barriers is generally a good idea. I just don't have enough details yet on exactly where we're talking about.
Right. I would,
So,
go ahead.
no, please.
I would tend to say that if the issue and the requests are actually about sound barriers, then we don't need to change what we're doing with the 200-foot barrier. and make make sound barrier, the 200-foot buffer rather, and make the sound barriers the things that we're talking about regulating and enforcing and mandating. If that's the actual thing, because as you said, those have been trees for a long time and they've been in the sky for a long time. And if sound barriers the issue, then let's talk about sound barriers.
Right. The pushback you're going to get from developers or any owner is you've cut me back and you said I can't touch 100 feet or 200 feet. And now if you want me to do sound mitigation, I have to be outside of that. So now I'm back, 200 feet from my line, and you want me to build a berm there. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm just saying that by not allowing, it's clear in the regs that the buffers were for, it says visual screening between industrial and adjacent streets. It's always what it's been.
Right.
But if we start to talk about these berms, it's going to be outside of that. Now you're really crunching your developable area. I'm just pushing back. But.
Shoe?
Yeah, just stay out of the 200 and 100-foot buffers. That's all I can add.
So if I'm not arguing against that. What I guess if we're gonna bring sound into it, number one, we gotta have measurement. We have a sound ordinance now, I think, right?
We have a noise ordinance.
Noise ordinance. Well, okay. Well, let's ignore that for the moment. I don't want to see a structure built in the 200-foot buffer. I don't want to see fences in the 200-foot buffer. We want to talk about a berm. I know Al talked about putting a berm along Saxon Hill Road, and I think he did that and put some trees on top of it. That to me is a natural. I don't want to use the term structure because I didn't want to see structure. It's a natural deployment of a sound barrier that's a living sound barrier, not a wall.
So how do we allow that? If with David's language of in there.
Well, can't the reg say may consider? Doesn't have to be a shall. You may consider some type of sound, or is that what you negotiate at the table without a regulation?
Kent?
Where's the sound coming from? Is this sound from trucks with an engine down low, or the HVAC system on the top of a building? Like,
And sometimes the use.
So
or
far,
the use,
all
or
of it.
like where I think if you're trying to get at the noise problem, you're gonna have to see like what's it coming from and like what are your
Noise
options for that. I mean, I was over in the Saxon Hill the other day just walking around the woods. I just could hear this drone of noise. It was just humming, but I was also hearing a helicopter and a fighter jet and like there was this noise, lots of noise. So, I mean, I think it's a good concept to think about, just like the visual screening. But then, I was trying to articulate a little bit better what's the noise we're trying to reduce. Because if it's an HVAC system issue, maybe there's a site-specific way of lowering that noise, or from trucks idling, maybe there's a different issue instead of. The berm would have to be really hot.
Now, in some cases, it doesn't have to be as high because the ground is like sloped. So that was one of the reasons that the berm worked on Saxon Hill, is because the industrial use was significantly lower than Saxon Hill Road. There's a downslope to it.
So for now, and again, these were talking points from your last meetings that all came together. So because we're close to wanting to get these regs wrapped up,
I would strike it.
do you want to strike it or put it on a list?
Or do you want to just keep the first sentence?
And you can change the word shall. The planning commission may consider additional.
Just gives us an option.
So I think I'd almost like to put the burden on an applicant on the lot. The applicant, the planning commission may consider may consider requirements for sound mitigation within the lot, and that goes to what Kent was just saying. Is it trucks? Is it HVAC? Is it I don't know, whatever. It's just
It just, I don't think it belongs in this section, I think is the fundamental problem, because the purpose of the buffers, it's crystal clear, is for visual screening between industrial and, so unless you want to say that a berm enhances that visual buffer, if we're going to go down the sound path, I think we got to take it out of the buffer section and find another area, to your point, to put it that enables us to consider that as a condition.
I agree. So, I agree with all those points. I think that either we strike it or we put it on the list when we have, for the next go round.
I don't know what the rest of the commissioners right now, we'll check, but given that we've had such a rousing conversation about this, I don't see, think we'll just. So I'm gonna go to commissioners one more time. We have a couple of folks that want to ask questions about this. So-
I have somebody.
Yeah, I see the hand.
Thank you.
I see the hand up
Sorry.
there too. So we're gonna go, Paula, you first. You wanted to ask a
Well,
question?
I was just thinking about what Dave had said. Oh, sorry.
Gonna have to get a stand, Scott, and put it in the middle of the room just to.
What Dave had said about berms being in a different category, but couldn't there be a reference to whatever category berms are in? Or if noise pollution or whatever is a separate category, couldn't there be a note linking what are the other ones called? The buffers with the other section as sometimes coming into play to accommodate sound.
Hang on, hold that thought for a second. If I'm remembering correctly, Al didn't actually put anything into the 200-foot buffer. He did it within the right of way by the road.
Right. Well,
So- I'm pretty sure in Saxon Hill he did it within the road right of way or there, not a 200-foot buffer coming from the development. I think we had the same conversation, and it was the construction of a berm within the buffer that didn't fly. I think we can go back and check
Yeah.
that. So to your point, Paul, I think we're still stuck on intrusion into the 200-foot buffer for any purpose.
Okay, the other thing that I had thought about in conjunction with the buffers is that people are concerned about creating more wildlife pathways. And those buffers can easily become wildlife pathways.
That's, again, they shouldn't be used for anything at this stage other than basically town utilities or utility.
Visual. You said it shouldn't be in for anything, but I thought the buffers were for visual.
No, I mean intrusion. There shouldn't be any intrusion. We shouldn't be going in to make trails. We shouldn't be doing anything other than leaving it
Right,
at
leave-
the state without, except for a
utility.
utility. There's
And on the
been-
100-foot buffer, a driveway curb cut.
Yeah. Good.
Good.
Gina.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I am in the Maple Lawn neighborhood where our backyard abuts the which is now Blodgett. And the noise that you're hearing, whoever brought that up, is the endless sound of the trucks. I think it's 36 loading docks that went in behind our house on a clear-cut 50-acre lot. When we bought this property, IBM was up and running. It was beautifully designed with the trees all in the parking lot, all the way up to the building. It was wonderful. I could never hear IBM. And IBM was, despite what I had been told, IBM was up and running when we bought our house. That 200-foot buffer, I agree with Dusty, should not be touched. That is space that separates us from those massive, massive, massive warehouses behind our home. The way the buildings are designed, which I could see this incoming, it's 3 large buildings with the loading docks in between the giant walls. So what happens in our neighborhood is the sound bounces from building to building to building, aimed directly at our neighborhood. And unfortunately, the road was designed to go right along the buffer. So the trucks, these giant trucks, drive. They can't get from one building to the next. They
through on the Allen Martin side, they have to drive right behind our houses. And if it's cold out, they will run their trucks 24/7 all night. So you hear an endless drone, plus you can smell them, of trucks just idling with their headlights 24/7. So that 200-foot buffer, I agree with Dusty, should stay. And then a berm should also go in on their property side to block us from the light and the noise and all that. You should not touch that land. It's just drastically changed our neighborhood since we bought our house 20 years ago, and it's sad. It's really frustrating. So I please don't touch that buffer. That
So
would
I
be
want to just
great.
say my apologies. My intent was to make more landscaping come up, because if maintenance isn't being done, new growth isn't coming up and scrub is taking over.
It seems to
It's been decided by the planning commission that we're taking that sentence out about the 100 or 200-foot buffer.
Yes. So,
yeah, and it seems to fall over, and new growth is coming up, because since they cut up to the 200-foot space, those trees are really kind of spindly and tall, and they have fallen over, and there is new growth coming up underneath, which is cool to see. But that is just enough space to at least move the buildings away from us. And we really should have had a buffer that whole time. And the design really should never have let that road cut along the back of all our neighborhoods. And then the trucks just park there. I mean, they're 18-wheelers that park there running like all night, and they're allowed to if it's cold out.
So again, I would like to say that I just recently spoke with Blodgett, the folks at Blodgett, and the gentleman I was dealing with, who was very responsive to me when I would call with complaints when they would come into me, has retired, and I introduced, I know who the new person is, and I've made contact within the last week, and he's supposed to be reaching out to these people. This is a business that's allowed to run 24/7, but their manpower is way down. So, Gina, continue to call me. Complaints should come to me, and
just
idling issue.
in light of the design, though, that road should have been along the Allen Martin side, not along our neighborhood side. Like, so in future designs, like the one that's going in, I think Red Circle or whatever, if somehow the buildings could be buffers in and of themselves to send the sound the other way, instead of it literally just tunnels right at our yards, like all the time. So just in considering the designs of Saxon Hill, when you're building, there should have been another way for the trucks to get from one building to another instead of along our backyards, because you have 18-wheelers in our backyards all the time.
So
So
help me remember here, 'cause it's a Wayback Machine, but I thought there was a Vermont state regulation against idling overnight.
there's a law for no idling. There's a law on a town has an ordinance, no idling on the street, and people at Reinhardt Foods, now called Performance Foods, they do it there. They can get ticketed. You have to be, the problem is you have to catch them in the act, and this is happening during 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning on Allen Martin, Blodgett. So, but we're aware of it, and the police have been informed. So we need the complaints.
It actually is legal if the truck is of a certain year and size, because you don't want them to, it's cold out. You don't want the truckers, they're driving from wherever, they need to not freeze in their trucks. So they are allowed to idle their trucks if it's a certain year, and if it doesn't have the generator inside the cab or something. When I called about it, the law.
Okay, so thank you, Gina.
Yeah.
Let's move on for this, but I think what I would like to put in our bucket for further review is finding a way to enable not intrusion into the buffer, one, but finding a way to maybe add some teeth to soundproofing industrial development.
I think I might just link this into when we heard the public feedback for the town plan update. People did mention the negative impacts that come from development, and trying to think about this broadly on, those were some good comments that Gina had about using the design of the building locations in and of themselves to help block, could be sound, could be views, trying to think maybe more proactively when development projects are coming to us about the impacts they're going to have on the neighborhood. And maybe just kind of trying to highlight that a little bit too, because it's all these things. And there's other issues that we haven't talked about too that fall down lower. But that was an issue that came up during the comments for the town plan about the impacts.
And not to diminish any of those comments, but we may actually want to bring in economic development onto this a little bit for additional review, because this is this industrial park is still very, very valuable to this community as an industrial park. And how do we balance that? How do we balance that value against some of these mitigation steps? And that's where I think if we can enhance the tools that we have to guide the development, as you just mentioned, can we use, and Gina mentioned, the building position, the roadways, would we sacrifice the buffer, more waivers for the buffer onto Allen Martin to provide protection on the other side to the developments? Stuff like that would be probably a more effective use of that space. So, commissioners, final thoughts? David, good? John, Chu, John,
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, what Al Sanical did over on Saxon Hill Road was additive, right? Whether it was in the right of way or whatever, he's trying to add stuff back in, and the whole idea behind the buffers is to, provide that buffer of sight line and hopefully sound too, if it were to grow in. So maybe the language could be not so much about intrusion in the buffer as maybe you could allow additive, like, as some of these big spindly trees fall down that are between Blodgett and, the neighborhood. Can they put stuff in? Can we allow them to do that? Not cut stuff down, but maybe add it in. I don't know. It's additive seems like the thing that we want to be doing, and then not allow anything else. Just point of view.
good point. I mean, I think this discussion to me shows that we need to discuss it more.
Right.
Mhm.
So I'm going to put that on the list for,
I think it's fair.
okay, so moving along, would be, the next one is the business design control. At the last couple of meetings, it talked about putting in some sort of measures, and we came up with waste management, pavement maintenance, landscape maintenance, fire and safety hazards. And yeah, so I'm assuming that you good people, volunteers, have read all that. So I guess I would say,
Sean's just shaking his head.
if you're not prepared to say that you want to put it in the regs for this round, we can talk about it again before the May 25th one if you want to, or
Let's go around the room.
okay.
Chu, you're first.
Okay, I'm good with it. All of it.
It's easy. Josh,
Yeah, I'm fine with putting it in now.
John,
I'm fine with putting it in.
Yeah, 'cause I got a question though. The town's responsible for picking up trash on the
Where-
75-foot between.
Oh,
Along
the
Route
town
15.
is responsible for keeping the 75-foot buffer along Route 15 clean up the trash. The town will own that. Yes, that's where the greenway would be.
Yeah, but doesn't that like include some of the buildings?
No. And so right now, Rick Bove, owner, has been maintaining that and grooming it. And that will continue until we decide to take it over. I'm not sure if that will be when more of his buildings are done. I'm not really sure
Okay.
with that, but ultimately, I'll speak to Catherine about that, if that sentence should go in at this time or not.
I'm just questioning it because it seemed like some of the buildings are closer than 75 feet, so that would include like trash around some of the buildings.
Okay, I'll confirm that. I'm
Okay.
not sure
All right.
if some of the buildings are that close.
Either way, I'm good with it, I guess. It was just a, surprise. So that's my only comment.
Okay. Anybody online have any questions about, is anybody familiar with the basic changes or in the room? Questions?
No, it's hard to hear you guys. Your voices are very soft.
I don't get accused of that too often.
I second that.
So basically, this is maintenance.
Yeah.
Maintenance. We're giving some teeth to
BDC.
to the BDC for maintenance, and that's garbage and appearance and landscaping and pavement and so forth in those areas that have been where owners have been negligent. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
The
Keep
next,
it in.
okay, and you're a yes too, Dusty.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is table 2.6b. I proposed adding, which is also in the BDC, so I guess maybe that answers that question, but I just wanted to call out that it's the same language that's in the section 7.7 violations. However, 7.7 violations had, it reads, if an enforcement action has been initiated on a property, the zoning administrator shall reject any new application for zoning permits. Planning Commission approvals or zoning board of adjustment approvals, blah, blah, blah. I've changed that to applications. So the intent in my mind was I can reject a zoning permit application, but if they want to come in, if they've got active violations going on, we don't want a planning commission application nor a zoning board application. So I wanted to clarify that with you because that was a discussion.
But I don't think that's a proper sentence.
Well, it might not be proper sentence. We can massage that. This was a quick on the fly, get it out. So, I just wanted to confirm that that was your understanding, that it was any application, not approvals. So then it goes on to read, and I did add this sentence, this shall not apply to planning commission or zoning board of adjustment applications which may be required to cure a violation. So if you need,
So I would change that first sentence
Mhm.
and get rid of the zoning administrator and just say the ZBA shall reject any new application for zoning permits. The planning commission shall reject planning commission and zoning, whatever. But
okay, so massage it so that the ZA's out of it and,
well, no, the Z is in there because you've got them included. You've got the zoning administrator shall reject any new application for zoning permits.
right,
Planning commission applications or zoning board of adjustment applications for said property until the violation is cured. You right there, you said the zoning administrator is the only one who's going to be rejecting anything.
okay.
Well, that's right.
Well,
An
yeah,
application that comes in, an application coming into the door, does it go to the zoning administrator? Or does it go to this town's staff?
it goes to staff, but I think the second sentence, I kind of took that as being kind of silent. If somebody walks in the door, staff is going to take an application. If it's ZBA, it comes to me. If it's subdivision, it will go to Kent. So I guess we can massage the wording, but I just want to make sure that I have what the intent is the intent from your last discussions that you don't want any zoning permits to be issued if there's a violation? And do you want any new, so for example, if he's got an active violation right now out in the door, can he come in with building G and H with another site plan, a new building? Or is your intent to say, no more construction or approvals until the violation is cured? And maybe this is too deep of a discussion for this round right now.
We've struggled with this for years. Back into the other David years. And if we're going to draw a line, then I would actually be a little more specific and say that no applications, zoning or planning, shall be accepted, nor shall any zoning permits be issued while a violation is in place.
Mhm.
That's how I would rephrase that. If we're gonna be that specific about it, no applications, no, except for the ones required to correct a violation. That's what it feels like you're trying to get to with that word.
Yeah.
So, chew on that.
Well, my mind goes to, I'm just playing devil's advocate. My mind goes to a large lot subdivision, and let's say one house is nearing completion, and you issue a violation for something, that, let's say whatever. Let's say it's something that can't get cured until the spring because of whatever. They got to regrade, they got to do a retaining wall, something. But they're under a violation for that one house, and they want to go pull a permit to build the next house. Let's say it's just Dusevich up the road, but they're so you're gonna not allow a single other.
So in a
Permit.
circumstance like that, I would condition a CO. They'd likely have to post an escrow,
Okay,
and then I would let them.
maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's
I think what I would see this is if they want to come in for a whole new building, and we've already got a lot with a couple buildings on it with some violations, or a plan, master plan, and a proposal. They want to come in for a new building, but they have existing, and I'm not talking residential. This is more the commercial, and maybe that's what we need to say. I don't know if you feel the issue is commercial and or
Well,
residential.
it's both. We bounce back multifamily housing in my mind is residential and commercial. So, both.
Well, given that
I mean, if Dusevich is all residential, if he had a violation, that really was a violation that I couldn't, just say, okay, the weather's against you. If this was something bad, for example, like the road that they have up there, I did not issue another building permit to him because they didn't clean the traps and it was backing up the water system. And it's like, yeah, okay. And they weren't sweeping it. Now, in fairness, the weather was bad and they'd sweep it today and you'd have to sweep it again the next day and stuff. So there was a lot of variables, but nonetheless, there were things they could have done that they didn't do.
So if let's be granular a little bit. There's two developers that we don't need to name. There are 2 developers in my history that have been really driving this clause.
Mhm.
One was the Susie Wilson Road development, multiple buildings being developed on Susie Wilson Road, and the ones up in the town center. In both cases, there were significant open violations on an adjacent property owned by the same developer. And we really didn't have the teeth to prevent the next application from coming in the door. So are we talking about a developer or are we talking about a parcel?
Well,
That's the other-
obviously, legally, we're talking about all of it, not a specific person. We're talking about the protection of the town, whether it be here, there, or otherwise.
If somebody owns 2 properties on opposite sides of the town and they have a violation in one and they want a permit in the other,
That's happenstance, so it happens to be the same developer, but we're violating the property, not the landowner.
I mean, it would be nice to have some flexibility so that you could leverage it to get the teeth to actually get something done if you're really having a problem. But if there's really a developer with 2 totally separate properties and they're having a challenge in one spot, you're not automatically bound to have it impact another location that they're trying to work. If you really feel like, things happen, and you could use your discretion. It'd be nice to have a system that allows you to do that and you're not stuck with one way.
See, the earlier one was a developer had numerous violations on the property. They wanted to continue to develop more. Dave Rogerson was advocating for not allowing them to do anything because they had open violations on another parcel, another separate
Elsewhere.
parcel.
Right.
So in this situation, we're really talking about when it's development on the same parcel,
Right.
not the same lot. This one's dicey.
Well,
I mean, I thought it was clear when we started, but And when we talk about it is, if they sell the lot, is it still fall into the same bucket? We start worrying about it. Do we talk about it if it's within an area that has a master plan? And there's a violation on a parcel within the master plan. Those violated, but again, some of those parcels may have been sold off. We're now talking different owners, or are we talking one? This is where it's
Well, that particular parcel is one parcel that was master planned. So even though we're calling them separate lots, it's still one parcel.
so that's
And he can count all that density. That's why we have that complicated.
so. Does that mean
Impossible.
do we need to wrap that into here? That is violations on a single parcel. Existing violations on a single parcel. You guys online are getting off easy today. Join in.
I would wrap in the master plan to try to.
I mean, well, let's. I mean, we're trying to get a specific thing resolved, right? We're
Right.
trying to fix a situation where an owner of a parcel, which has multiple lots in it, keeps multiple violations in flight, continues to want to develop new, and there's a proven history of violations and leaving them in place. So we're looking to potentially say, unless you have clean up your other violations, you're not going to do anything new. That's almost like spot zoning if we're not careful.
Well, but it's one. Even though they're referred to as their own lots, it's a master plan and it's not its own lot. It's on one big parcel of land.
So that's what we have to target. That's what we have to identify it on.
Right. So
If they're different owners, you don't want one guy screwing up another guy.
now the only thing tweak to that statement is he can sell the building. So Dunkin' Donuts building is a footprint lot. That owner doesn't own that, and the current landowner of the master plan doesn't, as is with the bank, New England Federal.
But they wouldn't own the dumpsters.
No,
They wouldn't own the
Correct.
grease traps. They wouldn't own the pavement.
right,
So it still falls to
right. That
the
one-
master plan, the owner of the development.
Mhm.
Development, master parcel, development, whatever the right terminology is.
I say the master plan seems to.
We'll get to your hand in a minute. I think it might be Ken.
Yeah.
Josh?
I was going to say, and it sounds like Sharon already said, I think that hanging our hats on the idea of the master plan for the larger parcel as a whole makes a lot of sense to me, because we're thinking of where one part of a developable whole that was planned out is in violation, and we don't want the rest of that plan development on that same master plan to proceed. And we're seeing that as sort of one cohesive thing. And so it makes sense that those would be the violations that we would target to stop applications from coming in the door. When we're talking about, I think, the happenstance of someone having a parcel here and then having a parcel all the way across town, like that, I don't think that's what we mean. We're talking about like a planned development over time where the implicit or explicit conditions of that planned development over time are not being met, such that we need assurances and teeth that when further development happens, those conditions will be met. So I think that however we phrase that as part of the overall master plan or larger parcel as a whole or something, like it's clear to me that's what we're talking about. A planned development over time, not just this parcel or that parcel, because you're right, Dusty, that would be very spot zoning. But I think the idea of master plan is where we're headed or where we need to go.
I agree.
But in a master plan, aren't there different owners? If one owner has a violation, then the other owner can't develop. That doesn't seem right
So
either.
I don't think this one I think needs some more massaging.
Okay.
I mean, if there's a specific violation that's happening right now, you just have a way of addressing that specific violation that you're
It's
talking
through
about.
zoning. It doesn't come into play today. It really can't come into
Right.
play in the planning application because there are no teeth in the.
Right. It comes.
Okay.
I'll issue a violation.
Okay.
Ultimately, it will go to court, which it has.
Right. I mean, it seems like the next
it's
thing to
almost-
do. Like if it's a violation, it goes to enforcement.
It Yeah.
I
So
think
anyhow,
you gotta like literally spell out what it is you're trying to avoid. It's almost like you gotta get down into the granularity of saying if an applicant comes in for an application on a property in which the applicant owns another parcel that's part of a master plan or in part of an already approved development that has an outstanding violation, they don't get to move forward with that one until they cure the violation. Because that's really what it is. It's just if two parcels owned by the same applicant in the same approved
master plan.
master plan. Because to Tom's point, that's sort of where my head was at, is like if one of the properties in the master plan sells off, the bank or something, you're not going to tie up another applicant who has nothing to do with the bank if the bank has a violation. It's really if the same applicant who owns multiple parcels in an approved master plan is under violation, they don't get to continue
Right.
until they cure the violation.
And if you use the term parcel, that would get away from the footprint lot issue, or would accommodate the footprint lot. Because the footprint lot, I mean, it's not that case. It's not the building owner per se, unless it is. I don't know.
Or we just get
Well,
right away from lots
think
and
I have
buildings.
enough.
Just talk about applications. You're not allowed to pull a second application under a master plan in which you're the common owner if there's an outstanding violation. That's what we're trying to stop.
Right. So I will come back to this. I honestly, anyhow, good. I got you.
So online, is it Ken, the Essex retorter?
Yes, it is. And sorry about that. I was driving when I got on the meeting, so I couldn't change my profile settings. So you solicited public input. You said the public is getting off easy. Did you want public input on this?
No, I was talking to the other commissioners.
Yeah, he was saying online commissioners were getting off easy.
Oh,
So he was saying I wasn't saying enough.
Okay, good.
You're good.
Well,
You're good.
I'll give you one very quick point. Just keep in mind that the owner of a parcel can be relatively easily changed. An LLC can be set up. So an individual owner with a problem can get rid of the problem by simply transferring the property to a new company that he might create. That's just something I thought of. You might want to consider that.
Thank you.
So in this case, we're back to if there's open violations on development on a previous something. We've got to massage this.
I think that it just needs more work behind the scenes. I think I might need to reach
Can we
out
just
to Bill
give?
Ellis.
Can we just give the zoning administrator unilateral power to do whatever?
No,
Okay.
I'll keep up with the.
But I think one other point is this has come up very rarely, and when there are violations, it's unlikely that they're going to come for another application. So it's not going to help that much. And the last time we started putting in the staff report, current violations, right? So that was like a way of highlighting the violations. I think we reacted to that last time.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea. I think it's going to be very rarely used. We have other mechanisms.
I think the other thing is the idea is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to cure the problem through some kind of punishment. Like there's another step behind the violation or not allowing an application to go forward. And that step is to actually get the darn place cleaned up and fixed. That's what we really want. So, I mean, you're talking about punishment and keeping somebody from doing something, but I mean, I kind of like the idea of, can you make them put money in escrow that is the equivalent of fixing it? I know that's crazy. I don't want to go down that road tonight, but I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to clean this mess up, and it's in the form of a violation. So now we're trying to punish these people. I'd rather see, rather than a punishment, figure out a way to make them fix it.
Okay, so I'm going to take it off
Yeah,
for now.
but
It needs
another,
work.
the last thought is maybe it's as simple as the planning commission may consider existing violations when reviewing new applications.
Well, you already have
Something like that.
reg that's
Yep.
in.
We have that reg in there.
Yeah, that may call out current
No,
violation.
but we can use it as a put it in there as a
Stick.
right to give us the right to negate an application based on existing violations.
So I have more than the teeth other than to just call it to your attention.
Because calling it to our attention doesn't necessarily do anything. I
Right.
mean, if we don't have anything, if we can't do anything with that, then it's just words in the report.
Right.
But if we have the ability to negate an application or to deny an application based on existing violations.
Mhm.
We can look at the history, we can look at the duration, we can look at the circumstances.
Yeah.
And that would give us the ability to do what we wanted to do quite along and simplify get rid of the whole, who's the owner, who's the, you know, how big of a parcel, and it's,
Another hand up
Okay.
for Lorraine.
Oh,
Lorraine.
I don't see Lorraine's hand up.
Thank you for taking my question. I love where you guys are going with this because we don't have a lot of leverage. I don't view this as punishment, more as leverage and a carrot. And so 6 of one, half dozen the other, that we don't have a lot of ability to be able to kind of control the violations, and each violation, of course, chews up a lot of staff time. It's not putting in impact fees. It costs us a lot of money. They have to chase that stuff down, end up going through court. And to me, this is part of their responsibility. So I really appreciate you guys taking a look at that in a serious way. And I really don't like the word punishment here. It's really, to me, leverage in terms of negotiation. Thanks.
Okay. Ken, did you have something else? Your hand is still up.
No, sorry, I'll get it down.
Okay, onward.
So actually, as I said, that was already in proposed section 7.7 of violations that you guys already agreed to. So shall I take it out of there as well?
Yeah, and I think it was worded a bit differently. and
Well,
stuff.
yes, I added a sentence. So let me get you what it.
Well,
So in 7.7, if an enforcement action has been initiated on a property, the zoning administrator will reject any new application for zoning permits. Planning commission approvals or zoning board of adjustment approvals for said property until the violation is cured. This shall not apply to applications which are required under these regulations to cure a violation. So that's something that you listened to earlier along in these regs and you've accepted. Do you want to keep that or shall I strike it there too?
I think it's going to have the same problems.
Right. I mean, it only makes sense to me. If
Yeah.
you're striking it there, you should strike it here. Okay. Okay, so going on. Article 3, Section 3.3, dwelling area requirements. The last go around of these regs that were adopted, you reduced the size requirements of the single family house and multifamily house, which landed at 500 feet for a single family house and 350 square feet for multifamily. The question comes up is, do you want it? There's been discussions past meetings making it smaller. Do you want to change that number to something smaller or get rid of it completely? Oh, and also, I did note here that there was an email that I thought went up in your packet, and I don't think it did. So I provided it to you. I'll read it to the record so that the PC virtuals will hear it. Thanks for your help the other day getting my permit. I spoke to Alexia briefly about short-term rental permits for the town of Essex, and she suggested to contact. I am working on an affordable housing solution which involves the use of tiny houses on wheels. The idea is to utilize a homeowner's backyard or driveway for the parking of a tiny house to be used as an affordable housing rental. The tiny houses are self-contained, no connection to the primary residence. I have found a working solution for wastewater disposal, which I have worked out with the wastewater administrator for Chittenden County. Essentially, black water or composting toilet waste is transferred to an appropriate facility. The issue is classification, as they could therefore be classified as an RV and subject to those regs. I'd like to know where there is any of this that could be classified differently to stay in place longer. We do have, as Tom is aware, I tried to get that changed years gone by, that we have RV regulations which allow, I think it says up to no more than 6 months, and it cannot be used as a permanent housing solution. Can't find it real quickly in the regs right now. And no time period, any 6 months during the course of the year. So I feel like we already have that. It sounds like he's asking for something longer, like permanent. I
Sharon,
say that in the past I have received some calls of people allowing the RVs to go on the lines on the property. Complaints have come in from neighbors. They placed it within the front yard setback, and other places on the lot, not, not meeting setback requirements. But the cure for that was to put it with, get it out of the setback. And then, of course, I start a little log to make sure it's not longer than 6 months.
Somebody online, John, shoot.
Yeah, I was just wondering that 6 months you're referring to is an occupancy time.
Yes, it says, yes, it is. I wish I could find it.
So I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
if we're looking at what you're asking about minimum dwelling area requirements, while I think that this is applicable to this discussion, I think we're kind of mixing
Oh, yeah, sorry.
metaphors here because
Yeah.
the email deals with portable
RVs, right.
portable solutions, something
Right.
that's on wheels and can be moved. This one deals with minimum. And for the
Right.
record, the last time we did this, I wanted to get rid of
It
Minimum.
completely.
this. I don't think there should be a minimum. I think we have enough protections in terms of potable water, wastewater. Like if someone wants to build tiny homes are popular enough. Someone wants to build a permanent 100 square foot house. Good for them.
As long as we have the water and sewage
Yeah,
and
and meet
Yeah,
the
they still,
setbacks.
yeah.
I mean, like,
Everything
why
else
do we,
applies.
why do we care how big it is? So I think we ought to just dump it, but that's my opinion.
I would support that.
Ditto.
I'm with Dave as well. And there's the passage in the document says, if delete in entirety, we should document there's no minimum size required. And I'm fine with that and just cutting the whole thing. I think Dave's right on. If we have the other protections in potable water, et cetera, like don't worry about the size. Let him do it.
We had an application or discussion, a sketch, come in for potential tiny home development over there off Lamore Road. That we couldn't do because there wasn't allowance at that point. This other one, I have some concerns over that. There's a difference between allowing that on, say, a farm over to Ethan's. If you've got a lot of, no, seriously, if you've got a lot of room, you want somebody to park a trailer, a small home on a portion of your lot for a period of time, and there's no real impact to anybody other than the owner. So what? But if you're going into some of the existing neighborhoods that we have in this town, where there are very small lots in the first place, quarter-acre lots, and you put another family dwelling on it, then you don't just have your kids aren't using your camper for a couple days or something like that in the yard. You have another family, and is that small home well away from the lot lines? Is there visual? Is there noise impact? Is there all that intrusive? I mean,
We have those regulations right now for a second dwelling to go on a property, and it does, without the frontage, if it's got the acreage, it can go on. Of course, driveways, and it can't be more.
Are you talking about ADUs? Or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about second full-blown house.
Okay, right.
Excuse me. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, but this temporary one is temporary.
This, yeah,
with,
that's
with,
RV.
with the potentially indeterminate period of time,
Right.
indefinite period of time,
Right.
and that's more of a, I know they're promoting it as a short term, but it's not short term housing. If it's a rental, it's a money making for the owner.
Right.
And that's a commercial enterprise.
Mhm.
And so does that bring in another facet to a home business versus, parking your own RV in your yard for a period of time?
I mean, I would love to see us figure out how, we're under a national and a very specific Vermont housing shortage. So I'm fearful of what you just said. I'm fearful of this turning into a pop-up RV park, but there's got to be a way to figure out how to allow one, or I don't know if 2 words appropriate. Got to be a way to figure out how to allow this, because nationally the trend is people are parking tiny homes on places and living for 6, 8, 9 months on them. And if done properly, following the setbacks, enough parking, got water, got all the other things figured out, I think on some lots it's completely appropriate. I would hate to see us just flat out say no.
I would agree. I think it's some lots. Some lots I think is completely inappropriate.
I agree.
Well, it's on, don't forget, it would be on wheels, so it's not like a tiny house. It's a tiny house on wheels.
Well, no, there's 2 types of tiny homes. portable ones and permanent. And
Right.
portable ones are getting good legs. And there's one on by Maple Lawn, whoever lives
Yep.
over on Maple. There was one as you right past.
It's
By
the
the entrance
second
to
or
the
third one
school.
they make them.
Yeah, they make them and they've been parked there. And I was like, is someone living there? No, they're just building them and selling them. But they literally had it parked in the driveway. No, I mean, in that case, if no one was living in it, it was just a vehicle that was a trailer that was parked in the driveway, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But they are there.
Ethan.
Oh, the third. It's his third.
That's my
isn't it?
last one.
All
That
right.
struck curiosity in my.
I don't know. This one might not count.
in my
Now, did it?
I'm getting tired here, so I'm running out of ideas. But when I was listening to this conversation, what I think of is the tiny home. As soon as you drop down 4 stabilizers and put that on blocks, that's and maybe I'm wrong here, but that then classifies it as not a mobile device.
Right.
As soon as
Would
it's
be a second
secured, I
home.
mean, I could build a house and have 4 cinder blocks in each corner.
Yes.
And it'd be, sufficient as a.
Is that true?
It-
If you just put it, if you jack it up, it's not portable anymore?
Just like a shed. I could build a shed on wheels as soon as I put it on cement blocks.
It's
It's,
like
it's under
90%
regulations of Sharon's shed policy.
You could build a slab this big and put it on top of the slab.
I mean,
yes.
I guess we'd
I
have
mean,
to.
Right.
the
but
mobile
I thought it
homes-
wasn't. I thought it didn't change classification though. If it still had wheels and it was able to move, I thought it was still mobile.
It's still, if it still has wheels.
Until your car is parked in your yard for 6 months and then it's no longer a car.
Yeah, but it's not a car. No,
It's a
I thought you
house.
meant I thought you meant take it off the trailer and put it on blocks. No,
So if you
Keep the wheels on.
leave the wheels on it but it's on blocks, it's okay.
if it's still an RV.
Right.
But
So
it's still mobile. It's still a portable thing,
Right.
even though it's jacked up.
I think the point's a good question.
Well, I'm just asking because can I build a 40-foot shed and just throw an axle underneath it and I can put it wherever I want? And I'll tell you, I'll move it.
I don't know for tiny homes.
You know what I mean? Though, like out of all seriousness, when it's mobile, what
if
where do we define mobile? Because that could open up. And this is just I was sitting in the back room and I'm like, I'm gonna build a 40-foot shed and put an axle under
I
it.
think that's what we were talking about.
It's a
too.
trailer.
What
You
is-
know what I mean?
What
But
you put a dwelling unit up against in my backyard. It's a 1/4 acre lot.
right,
It's gonna have an impact
right,
to 2 neighbors.
Right.
Maybe somebody across the street as well. The deer in the back might not like it, but it's different than if you've got 40 acres and you want to put 1 or 2 even on there.
So we have a definition for recreation vehicle: a vehicle which is built on a single chassis. A, B, 400 square feet or less when measured at the largest horizontal projection. C, designed to be self-propelled or permanently towable by a light-duty truck. And D, designated primarily not for use as a permanent dwelling, but as a temporary living quarters for recreational, camping, travel, or seasonal use.
So we just put an E in there to wrap in. We put in tiny homes that are potentially longer term.
So that would be B, 400 square feet or less when measured at the largest horizontal projection. So, I mean,
I would, if we're starting to call tiny homes out, I would
right.
suggest making it an E, not a B.
And then it's gonna come down to defining whether or not it can be classified as a permanent residence. Because if you say 6 months or 8 months or 10 months or 12 months or 24 months or whatever, then you're gonna have to enforce like a permitting process
so
of
you're going to have to.
we can allow this
enforce that.
house
But
and
it's
this is
also, if it's going to be there more permanently and we're going to change, you're going to be taxed as a second house,
right.
not as an
Assessed
RV
value. Yeah,
or not taxed at all.
right.
So,
So in this email that came to us, it's affordable housing rental.
mhm,
So now we're into rental units.
mhm.
Yeah.
So you still need to meet your acreage, it's still, if it's going to be a house, tiny house, whether it's, a 3,000 square foot house or a 100 square foot house, you still need to meet your acreage and your frontage. I'm sorry, you took away the frontage. So, and plop it on the property, meeting the setback requirements. You will be, a single family home, a second single family home, you will pay a recreation impact fee. You will share driveway, of course, because it can only have one driveway per lot, and you will be assessed accordingly. Now, obviously, a tiny home isn't gonna. I wouldn't think would bring in that much more tax, but it would be taxed, whereas an RV for 6 months does not.
No. Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul. Oh my God, you're touching the mic.
I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so it would also have to meet, stay within lot coverage requirements, right?
Yeah, but in the R2 zone, that's never usually a worry.
Well, we're not just, this isn't necessarily talking about just R2 email. I think that
Yeah,
this
that's
is,
a bigger discussion. So yeah.
Mm.
so as far as the initial thing, as far as the minimum structure size, I mean, your point, David, was to just remove it. I mean, how do we feel about that?
Yeah, that's good.
Guys online, Josh?
They all already
They all
agree.
said?
Yeah, I agreed with that. That's fine. That's fine.
Let's strike that.
Yep.
And it sounds like the amount of back and forth right here, including tiny homes, is a desire, but I'm not getting the impression that we know enough yet to be able to come up with language tonight to include them. But it sounds like it's something we want to. We've actually had this discussion more than once about trying to find a way to accommodate them in the community. So that we can.
I think we need a high level discussion, and maybe the town plan is a good place to vision this, but given the national and specifically Vermont housing crisis, I think we need to look at the statutory language with accessory dwellings, our current language, which allows a second home, our shared driveway language, and just kind of step back and ask ourselves, in which ways can we promote some affordable housing that doesn't end up resulting in the fears that we're concerned with, which, or maybe some of us are concerned with, which is, an inadvertent RV park or too much, intrusion into setbacks or too much density. I mean, how can we make this work? But we're not going to solve it tonight, but there's a lot of moving pieces that I think would be cool to talk about.
This is one idea.
But
This is one idea.
Mhm.
But I think the law of unintended consequences would bite us hard if we just adopted this and say yes to this.
And by removing section 3.3 dwelling requirements, you've already opened the door a lot for either they can already do,
Yep.
or in their minds, if they don't understand that, okay, it's a tiny home, I want to just build this.
Yeah.
So that's going to open up a lot. Now, maybe not for this round, but maybe we want to change how many tiny homes on a lot, like maybe two.
Well,
if they're-
you're only limited. You already can only have one.
Oh,
second
because of the
structure, right?
driveways, right? Well, it's different.
PUD.
Yeah, or a scenic resource. Well, true. Anyhow, we drift. So
Yeah. Paula, you got a question?
Yeah, I mean, I think you also have to consider the impact on the neighborhood.
Agreed.
And the other thing, I mean, when you're talking about a 10 by 10 space, I mean, what do you consider livable?
Right. Well, I think
mean-
getting the tiny home world involved as a whole.
Well, I know, but how, I mean, I see those as not permanent. It's something that is, I mean, 100 square feet, you don't have room for, that's 10 by 10.
I think that's a qualitative decision that individuals have to make for themselves. There's a lot of articles and videos and so forth about people who just love that small space. They declutter. They live simply.
Oh, I
So,
know, and
but I
I've
think-
looked at the plans and I've seen them, but
Well, and I
how-
continue as a broker to get requests from buyers looking for land where they can like their dream is, how do I get the $40,000 tiny home and a piece of land that I can lease or buy to park it on, so when you're looking at houses up the road at 700 and they're
But
like,
that's a specific thing, but in general, to have no limit.
Yeah.
seems to me to be opening yourself to a whole host of issues.
And that's also where you can unbolt the wheels and throw it on blocks, and it's a manufactured house.
Yep.
Because one of the thoughts, I don't know where this falls in, but one of the thoughts that I've always had is and I don't know like where it would fall in the rezoning or plan, but you know, coming from Milton, right there on Barnum Street, you know, they took a chunk of land, and it was a project with Habitat for Humanity, but it's just along the same idea.
Yep.
You know, they took a chunk of land and they split it up where you only needed, I think it was at like 1/16 of an acre, right? They're basically stacked on top of each other, but you know they had a nice little yard around them. And these were 400 to 800 square foot single family homes.
That you can do because that's about the size of an efficiency or
Accessory.
yeah, an efficiency apartment.
But my idea was, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know if this is in there or where it falls in. I still got a lot of reading to do and read the updated red ink. So, but you know, if there's a different sections in towns, in the town, where that could fit in, but it's not going to be a standard. You know, maybe you could put zones where you know you would allow a single family home community of 25 homes, or you know, it's something that's affordable, because I think the biggest crisis right now, along with you know the renting, is if you could put a family in a home for 600 to 800, even $1,000 a month, where they could own it, and maybe they wouldn't have 5 acres and you know view them at Mansfield, but if they could own a home and build equity and contribute to the community in a larger sense of you know and paying with the taxes, and then you know eventually they get to the point where they can buy another home. And so I think it's a larger picture. I don't know where it fits in.
It is,
plan,
and
but
we got to be careful that we don't say we're going to create a zone here and create a zone there, because that brings up the term that makes everybody go
right,
spot zoning.
right,
So we have to look at the zones and see what's appropriate per zone.
where it can fit.
And I think we do have zones where this sort of structures.
And the PUD can be a reality with tiny homes.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
we take out this section.
Sharon, I didn't hear what you said.
A PUD's, planned unit zones, can be a reality for tiny homes. So you can cluster them and get more on.
And we could even, I mean, we've got it on the docket to reevaluate the PUD.
Well, that's on my
PUD
list.
option.
You want me to get there?
Yeah.
Well, can I make one comment first about the letter we received?
Yeah.
He said he had a solution for black water. I would be concerned about gray water, because if they're just planning on dumping it, then it might go to the neighbors or whatever. So it's just something to consider if they're right up against their setback.
2-minute back.
Yeah. Commission, planning nights, when we sit there and talk, this is planning.
Right.
The applications, we deal with what's in front of us, what the regulations are. And these nights are the ones where we get creative and try to see what
Talk
the
it
future
out.
is going to bring.
So the next one is Article 3, Section 3.4 fences. You've already seen it. You've already approved what was there. Although I'm going to ask to make sure it never made its way into the full document. So I just put it out there as a reminder and for confirmation, or have you guys look at it. Are you
Can you reread it? I don't have my thing in front
Yes.
of me, so.
So the first one, no wall, fence, or shrubbery shall be erected, maintained, or planted on any lot which obstruct or interferes with any traffic visibility triangle. And we deleted on a tangent section or curve or corner lot of what the reg read before. Maintenance of any landscape placed on the property line shall be the responsibility of the person who planted the shrubbery, trees, gardens, etc. on the property. Any fence or wall located adjacent to a publicly owned or maintained sidewalk, bike path, or pedestrian way shall not be located closer than 2 feet from the easement requirement. The fences, the next, what?
Easement requirement, what does that mean?
From the easement. So if the easement is a 10-foot easement or an 18-foot, you've got to be 2 feet further.
That makes it a 12-foot easement.
So maybe just strike the word requirement, no closer than 2 feet from the easement.
Right, thank you.
So why do we need to be off the easement?
For Public Works is for their machines, so when they dig it up, they're obviously going to go outside of the easement, so they don't want anything right up to the easement. like a fence or something.
Yeah, but that means that the easement is not the easement. The easement is the easement plus 2 feet.
So this came from Public Works. Let's see.
It's true.
I think no. I mean, if they want more,
Okay.
if they want more feet, then they got to ask for a bigger easement.
Okay, so delete that one.
Well, but we've got a lot of easements already, but they didn't ask for an extra 2 feet.
But I'm just talking. This is property line. This is personal property line.
I know,
property
I
fence.
hear what you're saying, but
I mean,
They're
I can get it with the easement. You can't, do
built
that.
on the easement.
But the easement should be the extent of the disallowed area.
If there's a concrete footing, is a concrete footing going to be, I don't know.
But I mean that because if we say you can't do anything within 2 feet of the easement, that's the easement plus 2 feet.
Yep.
If you had a 10-foot easement, you're essentially saying you got a 12-foot easement for free. You know. So I don't think we should make any requirement, any limitation beyond the easement. You need more space, then you ask for a bigger easement. And that's
So you're just saying there's like a 2
So
foot
that's a yes,
step.
yes, maybe no. Did you want to ask the other two?
guys online. John, and I think Josh might have stepped off.
He had a lot of chaos going.
You're saying that
Yeah, you could
foot step.
you could strike it. I don't see a need for it. I agree with what Dustin said.
And I agree with striking. I do have a question on the traffic visibility triangle. Is there any definition on how big that should be?
Depends on what the intersection is, but that's what's being deleted.
Oh, the visibility triangle? I thought you added that. The any traffic visibility triangle was the first sentence.
On this one right here, or
Reread your.
the one I
I'm looking-
read?
No, 3.4C. No
Yeah.
fence or shrub.
Yeah. So it now will read, no wall, fence, or shrubbery shall be erected, maintained, or planted on any lot which obstructs or interferes with any traffic visibility triangle. Period. Everything else. So what's deleted is on a tangent section or on a curve or corner lot within the triangular area formed by the lot lines along the streets and a line connecting them at points 30 feet from the intersection.
So what I'm wondering is if that triangle is defined in size, because it could take up half the lot if there's no definition. It's subjective.
All right. So then I say that we just
Strikes the whole thing.
keep what we had and not put a proposed for that. So we'll say no to this one. Is that agreeable? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm back to the fence a little bit. So just a point is kind of pedantic, but if the fence is on the line of the easement, they have a concrete footing for the post. Can the footing go into the easement or not?
So if anything goes in the easement, Public Works is taking it down, and it's at
So they just have to know that they can't put in a concrete footing that
right.
extends.
If
it.
they want to use concrete, they may want to be a half a foot in to allow for the concrete
Right.
footing.
Okay, so you just have to know that.
Okay. So the next one, all fences or walls shall conform to 24 VSA. Blah blah blah. Just a sentence added to the end. All fences shall be maintained in an aesthetically pleasing condition at all times.
Have fun with that one, zoning administrator.
Okay, so that's bad.
No, well,
That's it.
are you going to
It's your
be
headache.
the judge and jury on aesthetically pleasing?
Yeah, no, that's what I said. That's bad.
I think so.
So is there a way we can capture,
What are we
Like-
trying to do?
so complaints are coming in that people aren't taking care of their fence and it's leaning and it's this and you know, mine, it's like, sorry, that's a,
How about
Civil-
how about structurally maintained?
Ooh.
I mean, in a structure, yeah,
No, structurally maintained.
yeah,
That because
shall be structurally maintained.
that accounts for disrepair, that accounts for tipping, that accounts for
At all
rot.
times. Okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
Kent's got to think about that one, but that's okay. That gets away
So
from
all
the step.
fences shall be structurally maintained at all times is how it's going to read. So yes.
I don't know about all times.
Okay.
Just because I mean, if
Breaks in the winter, then
if
you get
right,
to-
if something happens and you can't get out there and do something,
Right.
it just needs to be structurally maintained.
Right. Fine. Next, fences may be erected on the side and rear property lines and shall not exceed 8 feet in height and shall not block any traffic visibility by the roadside. Fences shall not be placed atop one of one another. That doesn't read so well, but, and you know where we're going with that one. The landowner shall repair or replace the fence in a timely manner. Any non-transparent fence located in the front yard shall not exceed 29 inches in height unless it meets the front yard setback for the zoning district in which it is located.
So, front yard or front property line? Because front yards could also include a sideline, side.
So,
Are we looking for road frontage?
so these changes were similar to what, when we were merging, what the village had.
Okay.
So-
So here's my 2 cents. Number
Okay.
one, we strike the 8 foot. We leave in the fences on top of each other. And we strike, if you want the height limitation, it's only in the, on road frontage. That's my thought. And now you guys can poke on that.
And
Meets the-
doesn't
unless it meets-
the landowner shall repair or replace the fence in a timely manner? How does that jive with all fences shall be structurally maintained?
Yeah.
It's redundant.
Seems it.
Well, yeah, we don't need that part.
You could actually take that in a timely manner and put that into what we talked about. Because that would account for if there's damage during the winter and you can't get out there and do it because of weather conditions or whatever.
Okay, so take out in a timely manner.
And put it into the one that we recrafted.
Okay, the owner shall repair or replace the fence. Right? I mean,
No, the structurally maintained in a timely manner.
Right, all fences shall be structurally maintained in a timely manner.
No, that doesn't read well either.
Let's just strike it in both spots.
Okay.
We have issues with fences.
Every now and then it kind of goes in spurts.
Okay, before we go off from that,
Okay.
Ethan, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to circle back to the triangle because I was just curious when you say easement, is that like right away from center line? Because that is based on the class of the road, which should be easily identifiable in all the separate districts.
So what I hear is two now comments. I say we don't make any change to what it's been. We just keep the triangle discussion in there. So no change to A or whatever number it is.
Because like a 10-foot easement, wouldn't that be a 25-foot
Well, we're mixing two things though.
center line?
The easement that we were talking about was for fence structures along town property.
Oh, okay.
The triangle was sight distance, sight distance from exiting a property, exiting entry onto a property. So entrance or egress, whatever the way.
So it's like a corner like Alder Lane. If you're coming up to the stop sign, you can't put a fence on your property line. You have
Okay,
to
so
be able
just
to.
fences.
Yes.
I was thinking like shrubs and brush and
Well, that's what it says.
Well-
No wall, fence, or shrubbery shall be erected,
Right.
maintained, or planted.
because in like different scenarios that I've seen throughout the town, the town maintains a clear path of vision, and from my understanding is, I don't know if they've been using the triangle method or if it just happens to be that way, but it was always based off from the center line of the road. If the road was 25 foot center line, they went 25 foot, and they drew a straight line, and that's where you need to be able to see.
That's on a straight line. We're also talking about corner lots. So
Well, that's what I mean, on a corner lot. You'd go 25 foot on Osgood, 25 foot on Hamley, and they need, let's just say it's 13 feet from C to point B.
Go into a residential area though. Look at that. Look at a lot coming up when you have two houses and a fence coming up.
But you're pulling out onto 35-mile-an-hour road, and if you have let's just say you have a huge cedar bush there, what discretion do you have to maintain the safety of the public on a town road going onto a state highway?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A little bit, given that we're talking about fences on property, slightly different target. I mean, this is in the fencing section that we're proposing languages. So I think sharing your point of leaving it the way it was.
I agree.
Is good.
Lorraine has a question.
Now, Lorraine used up all her questions. or no, Ethan took.
I
You
got
used up.
I
You
got
took
one more, and you're gonna hit the point next. So
Lorraine, go ahead.
that's it.
Yeah, Ethan, you can keep the questions down. Thanks. Thank you, Chair. Just curious, can I just have a little background or context for, I live on Route 15, so I'm just curious about the genesis of the, was it 29 inches on the front yard? Why does the fence, why do we want a 29 inch? Why is that limitation to my front yard?
I think as what Sharon mentioned, that was more of a carryover when we were looking to potentially align with the village before the separation was formalized, and we were looking more towards continuity.
But I think the 29 inches is so if you're driving a car, you can look over it and see oncoming traffic before you pull out. That's the
Right, but that has to do with the visibility. If the visibility is there and you're with the setback, the reason I ask is because those of us who suffer from the noise and the pollution on Route 15, one of the mitigation that's recommended is a solid fence. And so I'm also concerned with setbacks from being on a highway, having a house that's close to the road that wasn't well trafficked like it is nowadays when it was built. And then also knowing someone that just went through a thing where they discovered their setback was in their living room. And so there are some houses that the setback is, it didn't seem like it was grandfathered in. And to me, are we even reviewing what the setbacks are and who's impacted by that?
So,
And also it's gonna kind of limit what I can do to mitigate some of the issues with living here.
so remember that many of the houses in that area were built prior to the zoning regulations existing.
Right.
So the discussion of setbacks and so forth, if you got a 40-foot setback from the road and your house is at 38 feet, you're kind of stuck.
Right.
And I'm personally aware of that situation as well.
I'd like
So-
to make a suggestion that I just take another stab at this and kind of, now that we're at a different place, I bring you back what might be a sentence or two that might be, or a word or two or three different. So we can just move on from the fences and you can relook. Is that good?
In other words, she's telling us to be quiet.
There's one more part in the fencing that needs to be addressed. And it's the 50 miles of fencing that needs to be removed for this change on Towers Road. Because it says there will be no barbed wire or electric fences other than ARC1 and R1.
I think ag is.
And I'm central. That all that property, that 119 acres, is central. What was it?
Isn't that ag though?
Nope.
It's center.
Isn't it?
Zone blue.
No, I know, not the zone. Isn't it an ag use? You're talking about the past Sally's house?
Right.
It's an ag use. It's exempt.
It's exempt. Okay.
Right.
Under that wording.
Yes, I think it's in there. All right, let me look in.
Under state statute too, I
There's
believe.
state
I believe.
Okay. I just thought the wording
I'll
had
check.
there.
I'll check that.
But that has been one of our operating assumptions
Okay.
for a
Perfect.
couple decades, which is why sugaring operations go in where they go in, and cows can go where they go.
And barns can go where they want to go. And
Right. I learned that last year. Okay.
Okay, Sharon,
Okay.
we'll
Sorry.
park that one for the time being. You're going to re-massage that.
Remassage that one. Yep. So, Article 3, Section 3.6, height waivers. You see something where it says the zoning administration, that was a question mark there. I've answered that, and so that's not going to be proposed. I just deleted F and I, rooftop solar and wind, because that mirrors table 1.1. So that's just a cleanup. Table 3.5 signage. I added a marquee sign in the MXD PUD B1. You guys should, I just kind of picked some numbers here for square footage. So when you get this document back, when you'll have another review, we can discuss it then, unless you have feelings about that size area of 80 square feet and height of 15 feet.
did you just sort of?
I asked the person who,
Ask for it.
yeah. And so, sorry, fell asleep there for a sec. So and then a couple more things about signage, but if you have no issues, I can move on. Backyard,
I have a question. So
Sure.
sorry, on the marquee. So
Yeah.
15 feet high, 80 square feet. That's only like 5 feet long.
this person wasn't sure what to ask for. So I said, you got to give me something.
Well, okay, it seems odd.
So
Um,
I'll try to, I'll try to firm it up unless you guys have suggestions I can give.
no.
An example of
I'm not-
what they're
Like the-
looking for to see whether or not,
Maybe I'll have him find out.
I
What
think,
the
yeah,
Flynn is,
didn't they-
'cause
didn't
he
they bring
compared
one in?
it to the size of the Flynn marquee sign.
It's a lot bigger.
So okay, so I'll look into that.
I think, to your point, Tom, we asked for the right amount and not
Right.
ask for a waiver later.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, section 4.2, chickens. I added a sentence, except lots located outside the AR and C1 zones are greater than 1.5 acres shall be allowed up to 12 female chickens. So some of the lots like R1 might have I think a 1 acre lot, but they might have 2 acres, 2.5 acres. Do you want those lots that have more acreage? The lots that are greater than 1.5 acres shall be allowed to have up to 12 female chickens, with all setback requirements being 50 feet from the property line, which is what is existing. So did you want to create that exception for the AR lots located outside the AR and C1 zone? So that could be an R2 zone too. Or do you want to just keep it the way it is?
Has anybody bugged you to make it?
Yeah, somebody it's in the R1 zone and they sell chickens by, I think, 6-pack when you buy them. So which is why I put 12 there.
I stopped for
So
a
I'm
six
okay.
pack of Bud Light ones, but never stopped for a 6-pack of chickens.
Not yet.
Just to add to that, it's state law that you have to buy 6. That you can buy 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, so
It's a
so
myth.
It's just awesome that you know that.
It's now a state law since like 2015 because people would buy 2 chickens for the 2 baby chicks for their kid at Easter, and then dump the chickens at my house or any other farmer or whatever. They'd be on the side of the road, stuff like that. So just for clarification, you have to buy 6, but you can buy up as many after that. As you
so everybody that
Wasn't being
has
smart.
pulled permits have said when they go to the stores to buy them, they only sell them by 6. You have to buy 6.
Right.
So
That's why.
Yeah.
That's well. Now we know.
so yeah.
Poor
Okay, so
chicken.
you're fine with that. Residential care homes, that language was deleted, but that was approved previously and evidently didn't make it into the reg, so we can skip that. Plan unit developments, well, clearly we didn't get to that, so sorry, it's not in red, so I'm surprised by that.
Well, it says that you guys
Patreon.
need to do another review, so it's already called out that it's not ready for prime time.
Right, but I don't know if that was just carried over from the minutes. Let me just
It's
see
not
if-
ready for prime time.
Okay. Are you interested in seeing it with the package, or is it on the list?
Well, can I ask? Is that last one? Remember we had that presentation by
Yes, that's what that's all
Rich
about.
Gardner.
Yes.
So I don't want to. I mean, that was we said we're open to talking
looking
about
at
that. So I'd hate to if there's an easy fix there. I don't know if there is, but
I'd like to. I think we ought to do just a discussion on PUDs.
yeah, I agree.
Just a discussion on PUDs
So one
before
point.
you get a chance to leave.
Sorry. If we're thinking about tiny homes with PUDs, then it's probably less. It might be less than 5 acres.
Well, that was another question I had in there. Oh, I forgot.
So,
the
so it might
5
be
acres,
a
right.
step we need to take anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't think it now.
My thought, and we're not talking PUDs tonight, but we started at 6, we dropped to 2, we're back to 6. Is 6 too high? I mean, 2
that-
is too low.
Acres or dwellings?
No, dwelling, 6 dwelling units. Is 6,
6.
I mean, you guys, that's a dramatic going from a 6 to a Two, but I'll bring that back up when we start
I think let's
jumping in.
let's talk about PUDs because there's
Yeah.
we're
Yep.
either gonna get rid of it or we're gonna make it more robust and usable. And not something that each time it comes in we have to
Yep.
completely reevaluate. What are we thinking?
Well, that's why I'm trying to get some clear answers from you, Shane. Okay, so see minutes of 10:27,
So
page
you got 2
3,
minutes left to get any
PUDR
clarity
zone.
and answers
Okay.
from us.
She just
So-
snuck in a dig.
I know. There was no sneaking either. It was
It
blatant.
was like,
Okay, that was my PUDR discussion, so I see I did it. Lastly, just to tell you that we are shooting for the May 25th as a public hearing. And maybe you might get some minor little tweaks as a result of this at that meeting. We'll bring them to you sooner if we can do that. Okay, that's all I
Okay.
have there.
Questions, John, Shu?
I'm good.
No,
Audience? Good. Okay. Then we have minutes.
We have to approve both of them or just one of them?
I got the minutes from March
Well,
9th.
one was a set as a reference.
Okay.
So I'd like a motion for the minutes of March 9th.
I thought I wrote Tom's name.
I'll move approval.
Second?
David, Tom, any discussion? Does anybody want any modifications to the minutes of March 9th as presented? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Minutes carry 5-0. Josh, Commissioner Knox has had to leave the meeting.
Hey, Sharon, I was at that meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I have you down there.
Do you?
Well,
Virtual?
Were you in the room?
oh no, he was not.
You were virtual.
Oh, there it is up there. Sorry, I was looking at the others present. My bad. Sorry, I'll be quiet.
Announce your
Yeah. And I have one more thing before then. So.
other business.
Yeah.
Other business.
So just, and I apologize, I didn't get this earlier, but back to the regs. Things that we didn't include, the hotel as a use in the business control district. Is that something that we want to consider?
I thought that we had that discussion and it was proposed on the other side of the road, Maplefield
Okay.
side,
Okay.
and not on the other side.
Okay. All right. And then, the other businesses that I'm leaving you all.
You have to be
So
more
I
specific for
apologize.
everybody.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, be done end of May.
So for our first, you'll be here for our first public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be here for that. So I'm sorry to lose you all, but
We'll
Retire.
miss you, Tom.
yes, moving on.
I don't think we voted on that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being part of this.
It's been nice.
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing from me.
Movie adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor?
Bye.
I.
We are adjourned.
8:32.